Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's video. I hope your week has been going well. Thank you so much for joining me today as I create this new painting. As you can see, I am prepping my paper with water on both the front and the back. Today I have something specific in mind, and for this I need some nice pink colors. Luckily, the Lightwish set has some really beautiful pinks, so that works really well for today. I don't often start out with something specific in mind, so let's see how this goes. Even though I know what I want to do today, I still start out the same way. I still want to have the intuitive feel that all my paintings have. As a contrast, I wanted to include a darker color, and so I decided instead of using a purple to just use the gray. And when they started to mix with each other, I got the most beautiful shade of purple pink. I really like it. And then I added some of the gold. And as you probably know by now, everything I use in my videos is always listed in the description box below. So if you have a little bit of trouble finding it, especially when you're watching it on the big screen, you might need to go onto your phone or a tablet to pull down the menu. Down there you will also find my other social media links and a couple other links if you want to help out in some other ways, such as my Ko-fi link and a link to join my subscription membership. I also want to say a huge thank you to all of my members, those who are currently joining, those who have joined in the past. I appreciate you all and I love you to bits. I also created a second Instagram account, which I am planning on using just for my alcohol ink creations and other things I am going to be creating with these watercolor backgrounds. It's sort of like a store, not just me showing off my watercolor creations. But let's get back to the painting, because it didn't quite work out the way I had hoped. I was using the white acrylic paint that I had diluted with water, and I wanted to drop it in to create some more interest, but unfortunately the background was still quite wet, and so it dispersed a little bit too much. I really loved how it looked the first moment when it touched the paper, but as you can see, it kind of spread out a little bit too much. It still worked in the end, and I gave it a little bit more gold to hopefully create a little bit more of a halo look. And next time, if I try that again, I will definitely wait until the paper has dried just a little bit more. There's a fine line of, is the paper too wet still, or is it already too dry? I also didn't like how the pink splatters ended up, so I am mopping some of them up with a paper towel. I was actually quite happy with how they lifted off the paper, and even though you can still see it, it almost creates more interest without it being too much in your face. I like the randomness of those splatters, but also sometimes they land where I don't want them to land, and being able to soak some of those up is really convenient. Alright, now that it's all dry, I can continue with the doodling process. And like I mentioned, I had something specific in mind. I wanted to create a heart. I have done something like this before, and I will pop in a picture here that I really loved the way it turned out, but I wanted to create a full heart. I did not want to disturb the heart in itself. But as it goes, when I draw these things intuitively, sometimes the shape doesn't exactly turn out the way I had hoped. And that's when those extra lines come into play. These extra lines are not only a way to correct a certain shape, but also to add a little bit more interest. Then I usually sit and ponder, and I try to figure out what is my next step. And please don't let these edits fool you. I sat there for a long time trying to figure out what else I could do. And if you pay close attention, I also messed up this part here a little bit, because you can still see the line from the heart going through, and that's okay. Sometimes it just is part of the painting, and other times I am able to distract from it a little bit by adding more elements on top. And if I'm really not happy with it, I can also edit it out when I go in digitally. But to be honest with you, I don't mind having these lines in. I just feel like, why get rid of them? Because they really are part of the process. If you are new to my channel and you've just discovered me, hi, welcome. We are so happy to have you in our little art corner here. But I also want to kind of explain again why I do the process the way I do it. So I start out with thinner pens, and then as the painting progresses and I get more comfortable with the design that I'm putting down, I often go in later on and I make some of those lines a little bit more thicker, or I change the direction of the line completely. I add to it. I sometimes try to hide when I don't like a line, and that is all a part of the process. I don't generally sketch with a pencil. I don't like to do that. There is certain times where I find it's appropriate, but for me, part of working intuitively means that I just create what just comes out of my head or my hand. I don't like to direct where it's going. That is part of this healing ability that intuitive drawing, intuitive painting has. But just because I create these paintings this way does not mean you have to do it the exact way as well. You do what you feel comfortable doing and what comes natural to you. There is a time and a place for all kinds of approaches. Mine is not the gospel. In fact, when I was looking at the top of the heart, it kind of looked like a donut. Maybe Maybe I'm just hungry, I don't know, but it looked kind of like a donut and he gave me an idea. So I have my sketchbook next to me and I want to try something out. And for this, I actually need to sketch out a donut and then fill it in with intuitive doodles. So I'll keep you posted on how that's turning out. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who commented on my last week's video. It means a lot to me, and so the reason why I wanted to create this heart is to show my appreciation for all of your comments. They truly mean so much to me. So this is me saying thank you to all of you. So now that I feel that I have most of my lines down, I can start with the shading process. And for that, I use colored pencils. And for this process, pretty much any color pencils will do the trick. Even though I bought this dauber back in my cookie decorating times, I had actually never used it back then, and it's the perfect little dauber for little bubbles. So I am once again using a little bit of diluted acrylic paint, and even though it was a little tough to get it to stick over the pencil marks, it worked really well after that. I just wanted them to be very light and airy, and I think they turned out lovely. And even though I'm not showing this as a step here in this video, I ended up outlining them just ever so slightly with a super thin black liner pen to give them a little bit more body. And then I am back to shading in the heart some more and overall give this painting a little bit more texture and 3D effect. And there's just something about these cobblestone pathways that once I start shading them in and giving them a little bit more life, they just start to pop off the page, and I just love this effect so much. I also went in again with diluted acrylic paint to highlight some of the top parts of them, and I think it just turned out really, really beautiful. And by the way, you don't have to use acrylic paint. That's just what I had open and ready to go. You can also use white gouache or colored pencil or like the watercolor pencils and then dilute it with water. That also works really well. Coloring in these flowers, it actually looks white, but it is the same gold that I used for the background. If you stick around until the end where I show a close-up of the painting, you can see that it glitters a little bit. And for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know when the dotting tools come out, that usually means that that is the final stage and I will be almost done with the painting. I just love to give my paintings a little bit more whimsy, and those dots just always do it for me. Here I have acrylic gold. I will also be using the acrylic black and the same acrylic white that I have been using so far. I really like how I achieve so many different sizes of dots using the dotting tool. It would be much harder for me to create this with a pen, and that is why I prefer doing it this way. I also don't like dotting with a pen. It just takes too much time and I cannot get a good variation of dots with a pen. So if you have not tried this technique yet, I highly recommend it. And if you look really closely, you can see the little outlines that I did with the black pen. It truly is the thinnest pen that I have in my assortment. I did not want to take away from those bubbles. And with that, I will say goodbye for this week. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy lives to sit down and watch me create this painting. Once again, I love you all. Thank you for coming back every week. And I will see you next week on Friday with a new upload.